passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De i semifinale igjen!
Hello and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. Alex Kielce here, joined by Chris O'Reilly this time, and there's a lot going on in handball, and we're going to talk about quite a lot of it. We will focus a lot on Kiel because there's just some interesting activity going on from their spectacular Champions League campaign so far to their slightly less spectacular Bundesliga campaign.
Also spectacular, but in a very different way. It is a spectacle.
It is absolutely a spectacle. So the focus today will be about Kiel Krisis with a capital K. We'll delve into that. We'll also speak about a little bit about the Women's European Championship qualifiers, as well as Champions League action and the upcoming European League, the most exciting European competition in World Handball.
We were slightly worried that it wasn't going to appear. We were like, oh, wait a second, where's the European League? But it's here now and ready with more teams than ever. But, we'll get to that at the end. We'll save that little tidbit for last.
We will save that for the end, and we will speak a good bit about Bundesliga as well. But before we get into that, I will just have to mention our Patreon and thank everyone who has supported us on Patreon over the last almost 8 months that we've had that Patreon going. We've provided you weekly podcasts through the Morning Club, some live shows, extra content, bonus episodes, all available for just €3 a month to sign up. So thank you everyone who has signed up. And if you haven't, do go to Patreon.com/Handball Hour and sign up there. We do keep giving extra content, and don't forget about the Discord, which I am really enjoying over the last while. There's some really good conversations going on there for every game that's happening. So that's been really fun to see. And, actually it's been really helpful because some games I can't watch, and just dip into the Discord to check out if it's worth catching up on one of these games that has gone on.
Yeah, and no better time to sign up than now with the World Championship and European Championship coming up in the next few months as well. We'll be doing even more from them and maybe a few new types of podcasts on the way, as well as the Morning Club, which we have for you now on a weekly basis. Let's start with the Champions League. Alex, shall we? Speaking of Morning Club, Brian and I touched on it briefly in the last one, but in our 15-minute morning clubs, there's barely enough time to go through everything that's happening. Where would you like to start there? Because there's a few points I'd like to touch on.
Oh, well, go ahead. If you've got points, dive into them.
Our last full podcast had a real verbal broadside on Kolstad from one Brian Campion. And perhaps that's why he is not on the podcast today, scared to come out and show his face after angry Kolstad got their own back against the handball world and the likes of Brian Campion and John Ryan, and absolutely smacked Szeged around. 37-24 the final score. Halftime result, they were, 22-9 at halftime? Just
24-11.
24-11, even worse. No, exactly the same, but more goals. Exactly the same with more goals. And there's two sides to it. First of all, Kolstad are back. Second of all, Szeged continue to have a terrible time away from home against Scandinavian sides. We thought we were all for this kind of Hungary versus Denmark, or Hungary versus Scandinavia thing a few weeks ago. It continues in a fascinating way from last week. But I think you and I were a little bit more cautious to completely go in with Kolstad are dead and we should give up on it straight away. And I think we were rewarded with that cautious approach in our last podcast.
Absolutely. And there's actually, this is something I've wanted to share. I I follow Kielce on Instagram, and they actually post quite a lot of content from their trainings, for like a lot of kind of on the ground stuff. And there was a training session, I think after our conversation, but before that Szeged game, and the absolute intensity in that training session. I don't know if they were just really, they knew the cameras were on and were really pushing that, but the absolute intensity in that training session really wowed me. You could see like this was a team really focused, and that intensity absolutely carried over to that Szeged game. And I think we may have been a little bit early. I'm also not going to say that Kielce are back to the top, in world handball. They still have a lot of things to figure out, but we do have to understand that it's a new team, a new coach, and I think they're going to gradually get better as the season goes on. I think that will happen. And he just, like, watching Sander Sagosen in his role as conductor of this Kielce team is absolutely incredible. Did you see his line to the pass, the one that no one could figure out?
Yeah, this this kind of what is it, like illusion, optical illusion of a pass. Which somehow I have a feeling it was just like he tried to shoot it really hard and like deflected off somebody's thigh. But yeah,
no, I fully believe it. Because he's been pulling off some ridiculous passes. I think this is something he's transited. So anyone who hasn't seen it, he essentially was going one-on-one against a defender, went for like a full force underarm shot. And everyone looked towards the goal in that second, and somehow the ball landed in Gullerud's hand. He was basically kind of one defender away, who just put it into the goal. So it was just ridiculous, and I really do think he meant it, because what I saw was essentially he full power underarm shot that just with a flick of the wrist becomes a bounce pass to Gullerud or behind two defenders. And I think he fully meant it, because he's been doing these like really hard bounce passes. I think that's what he's come up with this season. It's not just a little like spin pass or a little bouncer into the wing. It's really full intensity and a really quite hard bounce pass that goes directly into the hand, whether it's behind his back, which he's done a few times, or around a defender. And I think he definitely meant it.
Okay, there you go. But it wasn't just Sander Sagosen orchestrating the attack, but also the return of good old Magnus Rød, who popped up 8 from 8. And we did talk about how different this team is or could be with him, but also made the point that that is always the case with Magnus Rød and the team he plays with, whether it's Flensburg, Norway, now Kielce. Well, who knows if it will last, but it's nice while they have him.
That's it. That's exactly it. They're a completely different team with them. All of these teams are. But I have to, like, the last performance as well, and that's been a consistent theme throughout Kielce's season so far, is that Bergerud had an incredible performance in goal as well. He had 19 saves, 45%. And I really think when Bergerud, Rød and Sagosen all play at the highest level, whether it's for Norway or for Kielce, they can beat any team. All you need is those three and some other dudes. It's gonna be a win. So I am excited to see if this Kielce experiment, which is not only done for club handball, it is partially done for Norwegian national team handball. Having all these players together, whether that translates to a coherent and more powerful Norwegian team going into the European Championship. So that's something that is interesting. But we also have to say that Kielce's loss to the almighty Zagreb was not their fault.
Yeah,
Zagreb are just Zagreb are just the greatest team in handball now.
Yeah, well, that's one way to look at it. My point I wrote down was Zagreb actually not shit? ? Big away win, a big home win rather against Kielce a few weeks ago, and what feels like an even bigger home draw with Aalborg last week, snatching the draw right at the end. And yeah, I mean, we said it looked like a more solid Zagreb team than they've had in a few years, but are they actually quite all right?
I think they're quite good. I think it's very difficult to get past how terrible they have been over the last couple of years. But what they've done is somehow integrate some good youth prospects into the team at the right time. So Samir Serna was the kind of outstanding player for Zagreb in that game with 7 goals against Aalborg. He's 25 years old. He's kind of the best young talent in Croatia, is what I've heard from the Balkan media. Someone who's flown under the radar a little bit, but he's been with Zagreb for a while. It's not like he's come out of nowhere, but he's just progressed as a player throughout the time. Now that he's 25 years old, he's kind of ready to be more of a force. Milos Kos, who scored that unbelievable last-second equaliser, also very talented 21-year-old left-back, Serbian. This time he's kind of been integrated after youth systems. He's come into the team and shown that he's quite good. And then they do have a couple of old boys, but those old boys are not in the crucial positions. That's the difference here. They're not getting Vuko Barazan back in. They still have a 70-year-old Timur Debirov scoring goals from the wing, which he'll keep doing until he's in a grave. Chupic just doing his thing, and Goyun just being a beast as always. So there's a nice mix, and this is a team that is actually good this year. We just have to accept it.
Yeah, and with this, I think we have to give a very nice shout out to our friend of the podcast, based over in the USA, Kurt Schaefer, who was self-pronounced as the only Zagreb fan in the USA, and he stood with them through the trying times, and it could be a wonderful year for Kurt and everyone. All of a sudden they have fans against Zagreb as well. That arena not looking completely empty. The good old days are really coming back for them. And just one thing on that Milos Kos equaliser at the end. That is the classic shot that you see taken in the last second of games over and over again. They never score them. It's always blocked, or it always goes low and the keeper makes a save, but somehow he managed to pop it in top bins, and yeah, full credit to them. It means, though, that our friends in Szeged could be in real trouble, but we'll have to maybe wait a little bit more to condemn them completely. We'll see just how bad they really are. A bit of bad news from the other group. Montpellier, who had some terrible news with Hesham, who's done his ACL, it appears. And that's a real blow for them, because he, alongside Brian Monte, were looking like quite a pair of big shooters they were having on the left-hand side. And with him out of action now for, I guess, the rest of the season, I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed that it's the ACL, but it's kind of almost assumed. That is terrible news.
Terrible. And the injuries are piling up around the place. There was... Fuchs Berlin got another injury. Max Dari looks to be out. There's one more who I can't think of, but we've seen quite a slew of injuries at the start of the season again. I think this is something that happens every year, and we kind of get into a bit of a panic about it. But eventually they even out. It is really this period, like October, November, is when the preparation the preseason preparation really shows in the injury perspective, and I think it is bad news for Montpellier and Hesham as well. Again, he already had one big knee injury, so it's really sad for a great young talent from Egypt.
Also, given that it's an Olympic year coming up as well, that he's pretty much, I think, counted out of with that. So I think let's go on to Kiel, and we'll start, seeing as we're talking about Champions League, with the positive side of things. 4 rounds, 4 victories. They've just beaten Kielce in what was a fantastic match of the week last week, where we saw a little bit of a kind of a breakthrough for the skipper. An overall, I think, strong performance. If we're sticking to the before you absolutely tear into them after our interviews, what are the positives you want to take away from Kiel's current unbeaten start to the Champions League?
Kiel have had an easy ride, so I'm not even going to go into the positives. I'm going to go straight into the negatives in terms of, they played Zagreb, Pick Szeged, weakened Kielce team. Who was the...
Bellahcene in round 3.
Bellahcene, yeah. Exactly. So they played the 3 bottom teams, and of course Kielce was the kind of the challenge to see if this team was really legit. This is a Kielce team without Andy Wolf and without Alex Dushabayev. And as good as Kielce can be, they're missing those 2 players dramatically. I think there was 3 saves from Valak in goals for Kielce in that game. They used Hawker Thrasterson in right back to fill in for Dushabayev, which kind of worked. But
1 from 1.
It's not. Yeah, it's not your best player.
Yeah.
And it was at home in the arena. But you were there, right?
I was there.
So what
yes.
was the atmosphere?
I think the atmosphere was really good, and we're going to hear from Magnus Landin and Samir Bellahcene shortly. I spoke to them after the game. When they were all positive after winning. But the atmosphere was really strongly positive, I think, because the fans, I think, realised that they needed to really get behind the team in a game like this. The game felt, the intensity and the kind of the atmosphere of it felt like almost like a knockout game, because I think both teams realised, even at this early stage of the season, with the people they're missing as well, that it's potentially a crucial game for the top 2 in the group. And the way things are playing out, it could be really important there as well. So it had that feel to it. Like, it wasn't just your average Champions League game. And I think that was a positive thing for Kiel, that they managed to come out of that victorious. For Kielce, things... the right back position, I really wanted to see Morito in earlier. He came in at some point in the second half and did very well. I think he would have been the choice there to keep them moving a little bit more as well. I think the emphasis almost went too much on Sitchko, or whoever's playing the left hand side in the centre. It kind of, the balance wasn't quite there for them. But yeah, it felt like a proper Champions League game, and the fact that Kiel came out on top, not totally comfortably, but they stepped up through the gears as the game went on. I think that was really impressive. Before we go into the Krisis, shall we hear from Magnus and Samir as when they were still feeling good about life?
That's good. Let's hear some positivity.
Let's hear some
from
positivity.
The Kiel players.
Samir, a big victory for the team today. What an event, what an atmosphere, and what a win as well for the team.
Well, the most important is the win and the 2 points, and we are leader of the group tonight, and it's very important for the team after the little bad period. We do a great week this week, and it's very good atmosphere, very great game of the team, of Thomas and Skippy, so we are so happy tonight.
And how's life been for you since you've come in? It seems like a whirlwind. It's only been a couple of weeks, but a lot of people have already talked about how great of an atmosphere you've helped to bring into the team. How has it been for you?
Yeah, it's my role. It's my job. It's to help the team like this. And tonight it's not good for me, but when it's good, I try to warm the guy, to warm the arena, and I think it's my best point.
And already in the couple of weeks you've had the experience of the tough league and cup games, but it feels like, I mean, this is the big Champions League game in the group. How different has it been for you compared to what you've experienced so far?
I ever played the Champions League, but with Montpellier when I am young, and now I have a better role in the team, and and this night it's like final, of Champions League. You play against one of the best in the world, and it's totally different. So I play 10 years in France, and now I am here. It's a lot of different things, and tonight we have a big win at home, and this is the high level.
You said it felt like a final. Is that the way you approached it as a team? Is that what you talked about before, kind of having that intensity?
No. It's my point of view, but it's all guys know it's like a final. They lose final last year against Magdeburg, so it's the big team, and when they come here, it's the match of the week. So for me, it's like a final, but I think it's the same in the team.
And coming in kind of fresh as you are for this team, you've come in at what felt like a bit of a sensitive time for the club as well, with the losses in the league and in the cup. Have you realised that there is almost like a completely different pressure every week with this team?
Yeah, it's totally different. When you lose 3 or 4 games, it's not normal for THW Kiel. So you have to next day after a game, you have to work. Tomorrow we have training, and we have to focus now on Leipzig in Bundesliga. So it's different pressure, and you have no time to mind about the game. And now it's the great level.
How does that suit your personality? That pressure every week, is it something you're enjoying already?
Yeah. I like this atmosphere of work. With this pressure, and all my whole life I want to be like this, to work like this. So it's why I come here, and now I am here, and I have to work with this pressure, and for me it's good.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Another big win in the Champions League. Talk to me about that second half in particular, because it felt like the team really found another gear.
Yeah, I think we're almost the whole game we were really good in defense, and in the second half we got that little bit more spirit, and in the defense, and we got some saves, and and then when you got that, you have the basics, and then the hole is there, and then it's really difficult to take a point here in Kiel.
And the momentum shift as well was huge. I think you said there are a few saves that seemed to really drive the team forward, because in every department in the first half, the two teams are so level.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really equal game in the first half, I think, and in the second half, as you and I said, then it's the small details with the saves, and not so many technical faults. I want to say it in German. And then it's the small things that turns around. And yes, as I said before, when you're up with 3-4 goals in the middle of second half, I'm sure it's pretty hard for Kielce to come back when they play against us in Kiel.
And talk to me about the kind of mood in the team, because I know that obviously there's so much pressure on this team every week, but also with the form domestically, the losses in the cup and in the league. Does it feel almost like a little bit of a shift in the mood coming into the Champions League games, knowing that it's gone so well, or is it hard to make a difference between the two?
There's always pressure when you play for Kiel. We want to win every game, so it was a really disaster for us not to go through the next round in the cup. And I think when something like that happens, especially at home, it really hurts the team and the spirit in the team. But like before, we tried it before, and we know how to come out of these situations. And I think we are on a good way now. We can feel it in the practice and also in the games. And I think we're not really back on track, but we are going the right direction.
I think Kiel as a team, you know better than anyone that, particularly in the league, in the Bundesliga, it's a marathon and not a sprint. You showed it last season, maybe a bit of a weak spell in the autumn like this year, but you managed to find the consistency in the end. Is that something you've talked about as well?
Yeah, of course. We have there will always come these moments during a whole season, because it's like a marathon and you play so many games, Champions League, Cup, with the national team, and you play the whole Liga. So you will always have a little bit like a roller coaster where not like all of the basics are there, and then you have these situations, and we have that last year as well. It was not that early in the season like we had now, but we managed to come out as a team, and I think that's I think it's high level from the players in Kiel that managed to come out for those situations.
Talk to me about the squad in general now that everyone is starting to get healthy again and not sick. On the left-hand side, it's very fixed. We know the players who've been there, yourself and Runa on the wing, Erika and Nicola on the left back, but there's a lot of new faces around the rest of the squad. How do you feel everyone is settling in now?
Yeah, it's going good, better and better. Maybe that's also a part of the little bit roller coaster beginning of the season. Have some new players that have to be settled in our playbook, and maybe that's also a factor that plays in. But it's like that for every team. But I feel that they are more or less good played in our playbook, and I think it's working.
And finally then on the crowd, it felt like today in particular they kind of like an emotional intelligence about them. They really felt when you needed their support. It wasn't so much negativity in this game, it was pure support and really trying to put pressure on Kielce as well.
Yeah, that's always like that here in Kiel. They are behind us and have our back, and that's why we all love to play at home here in Bunderino Arena. And these evening games, Champions League, it's always special.
Good stuff, Magnus. Thank you very much. Cheers.
So that was the positive side of things after having beaten the two-time reigning silver medalists of the Champions League. However, things, and I did allude to it a little bit, how things are not going well in the domestic league and cup for Kiel. It's going from bad to worse, Alex.
It is. They've suffered another loss, this time 35-34 to Leipzig.
Which now makes it 5 losses out of the last 6 games in Germany, I believe.
Which is really
wild.
Pounding, to be honest.
Wild.
And it's so where to even start with this, to be honest. We have skipped past the skipper here. We should probably mention him on that Champions League performance that Elias has been kind of the diamond in the rough for them during this period, both in the Bundesliga, where he has grown in stature, but also in that Champions League game against Kielce, where he really took over. Again, against Leipzig, he had 8 goals. He was the top scorer. But it's not the attack that's the issue here.
Yeah.
They're fine.
And just before you go into that even further, because, it can also look like with the... we talked a little bit about this in the Morning Club last week. You can get some random ass stuff coming from Elias, but that's what comes with the package, right? It's like you need that to go with the rest, because all of that just messes with the opponents. And his stats so far in the Bundesliga, he's their top scorer from open play. So if Niklas Ekberg has 36, including 16 penalties, 33 then is Asha Pagatu, with 22 assists on top of that. And he has the highest of himself, Erik Johansson, Reinkind and Billik. He's got the highest shooting percentage as well, which kind of surprises me. 61%, that is kind of in the Alex Kulesh scale of acceptable shooting from the backcourt. That is just in there, yes. So not too bad. But yeah, so the attack, they're banging in the goals, but they're conceding more.
Yeah, so it was 35 goals conceded against Leipzig, 32 conceded in the cup against Wetzlar, 34 goals conceded against Magdeburg, and 35 goals conceded against Melsungen in their losses, as well as 28 against Flensburg. That's a disaster. Yeah, it's you can't sugarcoat it in any way. And I went back to actually rewatch some of those losses, and it's essentially Duvniak, Vinček, and Pekler who are the core of this defense, and they are absolute shells of themselves right now, especially Duvniak. Yeah. Duvniak is a player who just needs a year off. Like Duvniak has just been absolutely fighting for his life to stay on the court constantly for both Croatia and Kiel for the last 10 years. There's just, and he's not young anymore. He's just, he provides nothing in attack now at this stage. And defensively against Leipzig, they played 5-1. And that's this, the famous 5-1 defense with Duvniak, which has shut down incredible teams in the past. It just didn't work at all. Didn't work against Leipzig. Also didn't work against Magdeburg. I think he's just not, his body is not there to make it across the different areas, and it's leaving huge gaps on the sides for which the Kiel defenders can't deal with. I will say again about that Leipzig game is that Leipzig just had one of those days. Everything went in, whether it was a shot from 10 meters or a Kempe or a random wing spin shot, everything went in. Something is really structurally wrong with that defense, and I think it actually comes down to the players, because continually we're seeing Vinček and Pekler as well just be beaten one-on-one. They're just getting, they're not closing it down. They're not destroying people like they have. And again, Vinček and Pekler, guys who've been injured, been through the wars, have been on the go for a long time. And it just seems like it's all caught up to those 3 players, which are the spine of this Kiel team.
Has the introduction of Elias Ellefson Asha Pagatu and his ridiculously confusing and difficult attack destroyed the spirit of those defenders because they have to play him every single day in training? Maybe. Is this what is wrong with them? Looking at the goalkeeper stats for Thomas Mrkva and Samir Bellahcene, they're looking pretty okay. They're both in the 30% mark. Like Bellahcene has only got 3 games in Bundesliga. He's 38.5%. Thomas Mrkva 31.2% in this season. So it's not a case of them conceding everything as well, which is a bit more damning when you see how many goals they're conceding.
Exactly. I think with Bellahcene coming in, at least they have that second player to back up Mark Van't. Both of those players seem to be kind of one good game in two matches, getting 12 saves. That just seems to be the way it's been happening, which is good enough. Maybe, again, we can speak about Landin bailing them out last season quite a lot, especially in the Bundesliga, and maybe that covered over some of the defensive structural issues that we're seeing. But I do think it's a morale issue, and it's kind of a leadership issue, because Kiel don't have that kind of one ultimate leader right now. Skipper is becoming that in attack, but he's not going to lead you.
Yeah, exactly.
Duviak is not really playing in attack or doing anything, and being quite poor in defense. So like, he's not going to be the person who drives this team forward.
And the other option then you think is like Paddy Vincek, and every shot I see of him, he's got his head down in like despair. He's like, oh God, oh God, what is happening? It's like, oh, why? And yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be the man to kind of lead them, and he seems to be the kind of the voice of reason here. Is like, it's okay, we only have ourselves to blame. You can't blame the coach. And the morale side of it is, I think, really interesting. I heard a great podcast last week, the one by Kieler Nachrichten, their Kiel. It's like a THW timeout, and they had Rune Dampke on, and a good friend of the podcast, Merle Schach, is hosting that, and Rune was a brilliant guest, and he was very like open about this whole thing, about the fact that it is a crisis, and that it seems to happen not to this extent now, but it seems to happen at some point in the autumn every year, where they have a poor run at some point and leave themselves chasing in the Bundesliga. And the way he talks about like growing up with Kiel and this, it's like winning matches is not a joyous thing. Winning matches with Kiel is just like is a bit of a relief. Losing a match is a disaster. Losing more than one match in a row is an absolute nightmare. How difficult must that be to live with every single day throughout the year, where even winning matches you can't even enjoy because it's like, it's so expected of you. It's almost like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to deal with like, the fans questioning us, Philip Yika getting angry with us. We're not allowed to play football the next day, and that kind of stuff, in training.
That's
it's
really
got to have
interesting.
it's got to have a real effect on the morale, as you mentioned.
That's I think that's interesting that they're scared of Philip Yika being angry with them.
He didn't say that, but I mean, like the fact that for example, this was kind of said in jest, but last week they still hadn't gotten back to playing football and training, like to warm up, because of the law. Like, it's kind of the classic reactionary thing. It's like, oh, you lose, and we're going to train even harder the next day. Like, no enjoyment for warm up, that kind of thing.
Maybe that does speak to this kind of morale issue if the top-down pressure from Yiha is to that extent, banning football. That's an example, but you can imagine what, that he's not a happy camper right now. And his captains, Pekler and Vincek, have both actually come out in the media and have said that they stand by him. Their morale is also down, and they're trying to power through it. It can lead to this kind of spiraling that we're seeing, and it does take very little to change this. A few wins in a row and you're in a bit better position. But when you look at, and let's just stick to the Bundesliga for now, the games they have are Lemgo, Göppingen, Bergdorf, and Rhein-Neckar-Löwen, and then Füchse Berlin. So that's the next 5 games. On paper, few winnable games there. Lemgo, Göppingen, and Bergdorf could be wins. There are also banana skins, absolute banana skins, in the same way Leipzig are. And in the cycle that they're in, this could just absolutely spiral. Mixed in with that, you also have Karlstad, PSG, and Aalborg in the Champions League. Again, not easy. It's just difficult to see a kind of a full run appearing for Kiel there unless something dramatically changes, and I don't see what changes for them.
On top of that is the fact that they've always managed to come back, particularly in the Bundesliga race, because that is what their year is based on generally. And unlike last season, we're already seeing 3 teams begin to open up a bit of a gap on the rest of the field in Berlin, Melsung and Magdeburg, who have at least a 3-point advantage over the next best team, Flensburg. And then basically from then on, you look at Kiel are in 7th place and there is 4 points between them and bottom. Like, it's a real dog-eat-dog world out there right now. And Wetzlar are bottom. And somehow, Wetzlar are bottom of this. And every team is going to be fighting like absolute lions to get some points on the board. But this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about for Kiel here. Alex, how would you fix it?
I think getting rid of the 5-1 for now is they just need to step away from that, because it's a very open defense, and when it works really well, it gives them momentum and they can run through games. But their attack is good enough at the moment, so they don't need that extra momentum from the 5-1 defense. Otherwise, it's just up to the individual defenders to step up. Again, very difficult to fix, but I think there's also the last point on kind of Yehe here is he's tinkered around too much in those tight losses. Against Magdeburg, he kind of put out a 7-on-6 that just didn't work. Magdeburg just ran through it. Against Leipzig, they actually man-marked a player. Again, that didn't work. I think actually just going back to basics a little bit.
A solid 6-0. I mean, you've got some of the biggest defenders out there, Stick to what you know. Don't make Paddy Wiensek run around. Just let him beat up some guys.
That's Kiel.
Just briefly on, I think we'll talk more about about Bundesliga in general more in the weeks to come. But as I mentioned, Berlin, Magdeburg, and Melsungen running away with it at the moment. Quickly on Berlin, because we haven't talked about them much.
Oh my God!
But
what is
somehow
going on in Berlin?
They're perfect. What is going on?
I have no idea how this is happening. Well, I have an idea, and that idea is Matthias Giesel, who's just been absolutely outstanding. He's averaging like 7.6 goals and 5.2 assists right now, which is just out of this world. 7.4 and 5.1 on 74% shooting, and that is all you need. You just need one superstar, and all of the players are getting injured all around him. You need one superstar and a youth system that can fill gaps, which is what Füchse Berlin are doing, and it's a real testament to how Stefan Kretschmer and the whole team there have set up the team. And we talked about what's going to happen. They didn't replace their gaps, Drux, Vida, all getting injured. Vida, that was the other injury that I couldn't think of. But they've found some players to step in and just fill it in, knowing that they have I do say two absolute beasts in Lasse Andersen, who's been very, very good this year. Didn't get the call-up for Denmark, which is potentially surprising. Obviously, it's a stacked Denmark team, so Arne Mensing got the call ahead of him, which I suppose is a toss-up. But Lasse Andersen has been really good, and Matthias Giesel has just been on a whole different planet. I keep thinking this every week of how long could this go on?
Yeah.
For now, it's going on.
Keep enjoying the ride while it lasts, and who knows, it might go all the way. Well, Melsungen next up for them on Thursday. Thursday evening. That's a big one. The run could end there.
Top of the table clash there. Melsungen, who did suffer that weird loss against Bergershire, but Bergershire do that to them. But Melsungen also looking good. I haven't actually been able to watch them too much. Their games, they've had a nice run against kind of lower table teams. Let's see now. I think for Melsungen, they'll have let me see their fixtures. Yeah, like we have Fixer Berlin and Rhein-Neckar-Löwen coming up. Then before the end of the year, they also play Flensburg and Magdeburg. So let's see what happens there. They have done well in the big games that they have played. So and Elver Jonsson's as a good player.
Yes, the Icelandic men there. Same with Viggo Christiansen for Leipzig. They're showing up. Big times for them. Okay, I think we can leave the Bundesliga for now.
Yeah,
still a couple of things to pop on.
One point on Fixer Berlin though is that they do have European League coming up.
Yes,
and that's a whole set of games on top of a very thin squad.
Yeah,
and I do wonder how they're going to set up for that, especially with the position that they're in.
I think they'll take the minimalist approach, playing 7 players at a time, like just for the whole game. It's like, you guys,
they'll just get that Potsdam team.
Potsdam, you forget about the second Bundesliga, or they'll. You don't need that. You got European League, and more European League coming up at the end of the show. Before we continue with the chat, and we'll go into the women's EHF EURO qualifiers next, maybe we can hear from a couple of players I spoke to after the Portuguese faced Netherlands in the opening round of the qualifiers. Really entertaining, let's say, match of the week from that, where Netherlands came out on top, 38-27. The score maybe flattering the Dutch a little bit. But when you look at the rest of the qualifiers, which I'll get into after the interviews, quite a tight match in the end, that 11-goal loss. But the Portuguese were showing a lot of promise. Patricia Lima was the player I spoke to about the game and their hopes for qualification. And then speaking to Lois Abbingh of Netherlands and Vipers Christiansen fame about the experience of beating them and building up to the World Championship coming up in just over a month's time.
So Patricia, it's a few minutes after the game. Now that you've had a chance to breathe, what are your thoughts on how it went?
I think it was a good first half, not so good at the second. We have a very younger players that are entering the team, but we need a little bit more the experience, because Netherlands are the team that have a lot of world championship in the legs, a lot of European championships, and we need to play that games, difficult games, to maybe improve our talents, our experience. But I think that this team in the future can do things.
Oh, we saw today, you mentioned talent there. We saw a lot of talent over the 60 minutes. I guess the consistency seemed to be a problem, but did you surprise yourselves a little bit also midway through the first half? You came back within 1, you had a chance to go level. Was that a bit where you were like, oh wow, what are we doing?
I think it was a surprise and not a surprise, because we trust ourselves and we know what we can do. But obviously, when you see that we have 1 goal to difference to Netherlands, we think, whoa, it's possible. And it's good, that feeling, it's so good.
And I guess at halftime, was the talk maybe a little bit like, we're 6 goals down, but it doesn't feel like that. I was saying on the commentary that it feels like it's not a 6-goal game, but unfortunately that's what the scoreboard looked like.
Yes, we feel all the time that we can. 6 goals, 11 goals, but the feeling that we have that it's possible. They are better, obviously, but we can do things, and we have to think that in our home with Czech Republic, it's possible. So we have to change a little bit our minds, and we will fight.
And you've shown at home as well in the last few years, like against Spain 2 years ago, you were so close to getting a result against them. Are you a different team at home? Do you think you can control things a bit better?
Yeah, we are stronger in home. I think all the teams are stronger with our family, our people. So I think that we maybe can do a surprise, but we have to see.
And a friend of ours, Marcio Menino, said that Sunday's game against Czech Republic is the one that everyone in the Portuguese handball community is already looking forward to. Of course, as a team, you can't think about that when you're building for today, but is that a lot of the talk in the team that Sunday is the real target?
Yeah, we have the idea that Sunday it's the day.
Yeah.
If we win, we probably have the chance to play and fight for the second in the group.
Yeah.
But if we lose, it's very, very difficult. So we know that it's the game, it's the day, and we have to do a perfect match.
And the fact that this competition has expanded to 24 teams that qualify, we saw what an impact that had for your men's team only 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Almost 4 years ago when they qualified. Does that give you that kind of inspiration as well, knowing that, okay, it's not an easy route, but it opens it up for teams like yourself to maybe step in there?
Yeah, it's more easier. When we saw the pass, I saw the men qualifying for the European. So I think wow, if they can, we can. Do you understand? So we have the feeling that it's our year, and we have to fight. We have to do a perfect match, but we can. For the first time in the history, we can.
Yeah. And if there's one thing then you feel like you need to fix then for Sunday to get that perfect result, what will it be in the team?
I think the attack, the passes, and a lot of the shooting. We don't have a perfect statistic. We have, I think, in the left back 2 of 10, and we have to improve the shooting and the pass.
You can see there the shooting, it might work in the Portuguese league or in France, but against those goalkeepers it's not that easy, right?
No, not that easy.
But no, a fantastic performance really. I think positive things to take from it, and good luck on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
It is crazy here, but how wonderful is that?
Yeah, it's so nice. I think always when we play here in Holland, we're always like so excited to play because it's just amazing with the fans, and I'm happy that it stays also like this. That it's been this for several years now.
Yeah, so. I mean the diversity in the crowd is really interesting, and I was speaking to some people here because it's the first time I've covered a game here for the Dutch women's team, and they said the crowd between the men's and the women's teams are so different.
Yes, it's totally different. Yeah. I think, of course, it's also a lot of young girls, but I feel it's quite mixed also with us now. So it's really nice. It gives a really nice atmosphere, I think. Yeah.
And a nice end to the game today.
Yes.
I guess this feels like more of a preparation for the World Championship, but a good test still.
Yeah, I think it was a good test. I think we really tried to do something that we wanted to try also maybe later on, but also we didn't know so much about Portugal, so we also knew we had to have a big respect for them, and I think they played really well actually. So it was kind of hard to prepare, but that's why we said, okay, we want to play our own game and try maybe some things, and I think in the end we scored a lot of goals. So that was good. Maybe defense a little bit better next time.
Yeah, was there a little bit of worry there because they had a chance to draw level? It was like 22, 23 minutes into the game, and maybe a bit of a kick up the backside, but in a positive way.
Yeah, I think so. I think it showed that this is something also we struggle sometimes. Like when we play good, we play really good, but we also fall down sometimes. So we're trying to fix this somehow, and I think it was a good test today, and I'm happy everybody could play and could join the game, and that was nice.
And it was a bit of a gap in the right back position as well, with two of your main lefties being injured and sick. Was that a bit odd as well? Maybe put a bit more emphasis on the left side and the wings?
Yeah. I think, of course, the whole way of playing just changed a little bit because you don't have a left-hander over there. So we really tried to make the best out of it. And I think the young Kim and Harma did a good job. So, but for them it also must be hard. So it definitely changed the way a little bit of how we want to play. But yeah, we managed, and that's also the strength of the team.
Building up to the World Championship then, what are the things that you've talked about as a team that you have to focus on developing?
I think we talked a lot about being good in the right moments. I think last tournament, I was of course not there, but what I saw was that they played a really good tournament, but maybe in the moment where it had to be, we struggled a little bit, and but still we were really close. So we also know if we maybe can step up in this moments, and maybe we can aim for a semi-final hopefully. But we also know that will be a really tough road.
Yeah, it's a long journey.
We try to work game by game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this week, I said there, and I heard some people mention it feels like the beginning of the World Championship preparation. Knowing the opposition you have, or not knowing them maybe, is it a lot of focus on yourself then?
Yes.
And building up?
Yeah, I think that's only maybe also a good thing about this, that we maybe don't know so much about the opponents, is we can prepare in a good way, just focusing on ourselves. And I think, like I said, Portugal was a really good opponent for us in that way, because they played quite well, and they really made us struggle. So this was a really good test for us actually today.
And it feels like they're a little bit more inspired as well with the widening of the final 24 teams.
Yes.
They have a chance all of a sudden to qualify. We saw what difference that made for the Dutch men, for example, only 4 years ago, right? So do you think that that's a positive step on the women's side as well?
Yeah, I think so, and I also think that it's good that, of course, maybe in the end the difference was quite big in goals, but I don't feel like the difference was that big. So it's good that the level becomes closer and closer, because I think it's nice to play like not easy matches in a World Championship. So I hope that everybody can like be better and better, so we can have an even better championship.
And lastly then, how's the new chapter and the club level treating you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's really nice. I really like it in Kristiansand, and they made it very easy for me to come into the team, and so I'm really happy.
Yeah, they're redeveloping themselves every year. It's exciting chapter.
It's quite also inspiring to see. Yes, it is.
All right, thank you so much, Lois,
Thank
and
you.
enjoy the rest of your autographs.
So that was Patricia Lima and Lois Abbingh, and as I mentioned right beforehand, and we spoke about a little bit in the morning club last week, the qualification system for this competition is a little bit off balance. I think it is fair to say. It's the first time that we're going to have 24 teams in the final tournament, matching the move to do that in the men's Euro back in 2020. And this is where the situation might be leading to, Alex. Of the third and fourth ranked teams in each of the groups, so there's 8 groups of 4 teams in this. Actually, one group is with 3. But of the third and fourth ranked teams in all the groups, only one of them, Turkey, managed to get a point in the game where they should have gotten a point, where the third ranked teams are playing at home against the second ranked teams. So that was Turkey getting a draw with Serbia, which means they're leading the race for one of the best fourth place teams. So they are the best third place team. So 4 third place teams get a spot at the Euro. And as things are looking, it will be Turkey with their 1 point. And then it's going to be a case of whoever loses by the least in all the other groups against the first and second place teams. I think there's still a chance that Slovakia will get a result against Ukraine, because that's a really tight one between second and third place in the groups. But likely there's going to be 2 spots for teams who haven't won anything or haven't gotten a point against the top ranked teams and only lose by the least goals, which
Incredible.
at the moment looks like a toss-up between Portugal, Faroe Islands and Greece. 2 of those 3 will get into the Euro. And although Patricia Lima was talking about how they were really building up to the game, which eventually they lost against Czech Republic on Sunday, a tight game there. But
their chances of qualifying for the Euro still looking pretty good based on not losing by as much as everyone else. Your thoughts?
I do love that, because the next round is actually between, so all of these bottom teams,
yes,
who have 0 points or 1 point are all playing against each other, and that just doesn't matter.
Well, it matters because you have to finish third. You have to beat the other team. You have to finish third. You have to finish third. But the table for among the third place teams are only against the top two. But yeah, you still have to be better than the worst team.
Okay, so at least that will be some very competitive games. Yeah. And one team that's not going to make it is Latvia.
Oh, goodness.
Lost 55-5 against France in an absolute massacre. I did not watch any of the game, do not intend on watching any of that game, but it probably...
Do you know the halftime score?
So was it like 23-1?
It was 26-1. Yeah.
26-1. That's painful.
Yeah.
I think...
And they were playing at home in front of 312 people.
Oh my God. Or 312 Latvians. It was that stuff. It probably speaks to the division in the ranks of women's handball at the moment, which seems to be getting larger and larger, and you can probably split that up into 3 tranches. You have the teams at the top, you're always at the top, your Scandinavian teams and France and Spain, essentially. Then you have the mid-level, which is quite far behind that. And then you have a bottom level that's even just miles away from that. Yeah. Again, this Latvia team conceding 53 goals against Slovenia as well.
Yeah, I mean, these are teams that, like, this is a level we've played at, Alex, where this is, first qualification round level. And these are teams that usually only face each other and are now being thrown into against the big dogs because they've expanded this tournament. And I think the expansion of the tournament to 24 teams is not a bad idea by any means, but the way you can have the teams qualify, I think, could be changed. And there's a great example of that in the Euro qualifiers in women's football. You can look into that yourselves, or if you really want to, another day, I can go into why that works well. But they have actually divided that into those 3 kind of divisions, like you mentioned, and made qualification for the top teams a lot more straightforward, as it is anyway here, and save a few I say lopsided results, but hammerings is a more accurate description of it. But yeah, so still good chances for Portugal, Greece, or Faroe Islands, I think, to qualify for the Euro. So yeah, there's some good news in there.
Right, European League to wrap us up.
Speaking of expanded tournaments, Alex, the group phase has 32 teams, and I, for one, am now on board with it.
Why is that? Why is that?
I'll tell you why.
Tell me the beautiful clashes we might see.
Well, I don't need to tell you, because thankfully our friend Kevin Domas has done that work for me, and there's a handy article on Eurohandball.com. They haven't bothered with previews for all the matches. Now we have Kevin Domas's top 5 matches of the week.
Lovely.
I love it. And let's be honest, these matches are pretty tasty. We have Nantes versus Benfica, Gorenje Verlenia against Fadi Winterthur, Nexa Nashica against Skjern, Flensburg against Cadetten Schaffhausen, and Bjerringbro against La Rioja. So, some nice matches in there. But why I'm particularly happy to see 32 teams is while I was looking at the matches and the teams in the groups that are not mentioned in Kevin Domas's top 5 matches, and in particular in 2 of what I think are 2 of the most entertaining groups. Group E, which has Flensburg, Elverum, Cadetten, and Lovsen Cetinje from Montenegro, and in Group G, which has Berlin, Dinamo Bucuresti, Chambéry, and Izvidac from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Teams like those 2, Vojvodina, Kirill Lazarov's Alkaloid, it means finally we're getting the Balkan teams back into this kind of level of European handball on a week in, week out basis. When it felt like all hope was lost for these teams, they've kind of been left in a time like a time, what is it, a forgotten time in handball. But now they've been thrust back into this kind of limelight, and I think that's a really positive thing.
For one, I am really looking forward to Pavaska Bistrica playing ABC Braga.
Yes.
That's my match of the week. Look out for it.
It's a Champions League group game match from 1996. Hey, what's there not to like? Those groups I mentioned there, E and G, have 3 very strong teams in it, as well as the token Balkan team, which is interesting, seeing as the top 2 make it through, right? I believe, into the main round. We also have Group A, which really stands out to me. Nantes, Kristianstad, Benfica, and Rhein-Neckar Leuven. Now, that is a tasty group.
It's a lovely group, but actually, so there's 9 groups.
What? No, 8 groups of 4. Right?
Oh no, sorry, it's just mixed up. No, 8 groups.
That would be really. I don't think EHF comes up with some funky group divisions, but that would be really out there.
Never mind. Top 2 teams get through. So
9 groups. Top 3 teams go through. 27 left. We divide it by 3, multiply it, carry the 2, and then we're into the main round.
Cards and
a partridge in a pear tree. No, so.
There will be some really fun games within that, and I think the one thing that we will get is a really, really exciting knockout round starting from a last 16, which I've got on about that we need more knockout handball, so that's going to be fun.
There's a last 16? No. Oh, there is?
No, main round.
Oh, a main round?
I think it goes directly to knockout.
No, there is a main round. Yeah.
Oh, God. Why is there main round?
Yeah, to make it even longer.
Let's get rid of the Balkans.
Yeah. The top 2 from every group goes into the main round, which is 16 teams. And then there is the playoff round. So then you have the second place teams from the main round facing the third place teams from the main round. The winners of those matches go to face the group winners from all the main round groups in the quarterfinals. Good times. It's going to be a long European League season, my friend.
It's already the middle of October. When are we going to fit in all these games?
I now feel a bit more worried about Fuchs Berlin's chances that they're going to have to play all these matches.
Fuchs Berlin are just...
Yeah, they're in trouble.
Wrap Matthias Gisel and Cotton Wool and set him to the side. Put him on ice for the European League.
What the European League is going to be really good for, though, is expanding upon our friend of the podcast, Eugene Lavery's league versus league standings, which I think you agree is a fantastic idea and something which we will have to keep referring to as the season goes on. And this is where Eugene is really doing his homework here and looking at all the matches between sides in the top leagues in Europe, in the Champions League and in the European League. So he has the Liga Assobal in there, the Portuguese Handball 1, the Bundesliga, the Nemzeti Bajnokság 1 from Hungary, the Rema Ettusenligaen from Norway, the Star League from France, the Hera Handball Ligaen from Denmark, and the Superliga from Poland. And I think it's a really fun concept. And I'm going to suggest we call it the Lavery Shield, this race for the title as the season goes on. The Lavery Shield.
Let's see if Barcelona can keep the Liga Assobal at the top.
There's a few Assobal League teams in the European League, so that could be under a bit of threat. But that's what it's all about, to make it more interesting. Liga Assobal top of the table so far with Barca's 4 out of 4. The Superliga in Poland struggling.
Thanks for joining us on this journey around handball. We covered the big topics. We covered the smallest of small topics, as we do every time. Thanks for following us on Patreon. sign up if you haven't already, and we'll be back with you with the Morning Club this week, as well as another podcast coming to everyone quite soon.